video, I wanted to just offer you a little bit of help with your discussion board post this week. In the directions, you will be selecting this hat, copying and pasting it, and moving it to the door, or to the doorknob more precisely. Doing the same thing with the jacket, copy and paste, and you're going to hang it from the door like there's a nail here. And then you're going to, again, select and copy and paste the boots until you have 5 sets across the floor. Now, that should not be too challenging because we have gone over selection tools, and I also introduced you to the object selection tool this week. But what you also have to do is come back and fix the wall and do your best to make it look like the hat was never there to begin with. Okay, so cleaning up this wall. To do that, I'm going to run through the hat and just working through a section of this to give you a head start so you can work on the rest of it on your own. And to get started, again, I'm using the object selection tool. I'm going to make sure I'm on a new selection, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the rectangle, and I'm just going to draw out my selection, and then I'll zoom in a little bit. Again, if you don't remember how to zoom, you can go to View and zoom in and zoom out here. Okay. And again, the hat looks pretty good, okay, but in this case, I don't want that shadow. In particular, because I'm going to copy and paste it over here to the door, so I don't want it to look like it came off the wall. So I'm going to move to my lasso and subtract from my selection. Okay. And that looks pretty good. Okay. I can add maybe a little bit here. Okay. But again, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to stop there and I'll do a copy and a paste. And I'll grab my move tool and I'll just move this over and place it here on the doorknob. Okay, I'll zoom out a little bit so that's a little bit more obvious. You'll be doing the exact same thing with the jacket, so you can use any of the selection tools that you'd like to, again, copy and paste it. It's going to be the exact same set of steps that I used for the hat. Okay. Now, at this point, I need to mask that the hat was ever there. And to do that, you have a number of tools that you can use, but what I typically use for this assignment is the clone stamp tool. And this is really easy to understand if you just think of the concept of a stamp. Okay, I'm going to ink using Good Clean Wall, and I'm going to stamp on something essentially bad that I want to hide. And this works more effectively if you stamp like to like than if I do things that are really different. And you can tell this is really different because it's a wood wall and it's really light. And I have sections of hat here that are practically black. And so if I do light on something very dark, I'm going to have to stamp it a lot. And the more you use this tool, okay, the more you stamp, the blurrier and fuzzier it's going to get. So I really want you to come into this thinking, I want to stamp as few times as possible, right? So to make this more like the wall, I'm actually going to use my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to copy pieces of wall and put it on top of the hat, okay? So to do that, I need to make sure I'm on new selection. And if I come in and grab a piece of wall and try to copy, okay, the first thing I want you to notice is that it cannot copy because the selected area is empty. And it's empty because I'm obviously on the wrong layer, okay? There is no wall on layer 1. So I'll put myself on the background and I can do a copy paste, okay? And then I can grab my move tool and bring this down, okay? Taking care to make sure that your grooves line up. Okay, and I'm actually not real happy with this selection. It's small. I'm going to have to, make various copies of this. So I'm going to delete this layer too, and I'm going to make my selection again, making sure first that I come as close to this door frame as I can, and then I come as close to the hat as I can, okay, because I want this selection to be as large as possible. So I'll copy paste. Okay, I'll grab my move tool and I'll start to shift that down. Again, taking care to line up my grooves. And I'll go as far as I can. Whoops, hat starts to show. So I need another piece of wall, and I could either right click and duplicate this layer. Okay, that's perfectly fine. The other thing you can do is if you hold your Alt key on a PC or your Option key on a Mac, I'll hold that key, and in conjunction with my move tool, I can duplicate that wall, okay? And same thing, I'm just gonna nudge this over and make sure that my grooves line up, okay? Now, I know there is a great deal of photo editing that can be done in this program, but at the end of the day, you never want to spend more time editing something than you have to. Okay, so take it from me, I have taken labels off of pinstripe suits. It's extremely painful, particularly when you have really clear lines that emerge that you need to maintain. So make this as simple as possible. Okay. Now, I have hidden the hat, and I need to start blending these new pieces of wall into the old wall. And to do that, I've got to actually blend all of my layers. I can't blend something that's on a separate layer with something that's on another layer. So to accomplish this, I need to flatten my layers into one layer. And I'm going to do that by coming up to my menu, go to layer, and I'm going to use this option for flatten my image. And it's going to be like a steamroller, just smushing everything together. Okay. Now, when you do this for the assignment, obviously you'll do it after you've also moved the jacket and you've duplicated all of your boots. Okay. Now, to start blending this again, I'm going to go back to my clone stamp tool, and you're going to see that this is a brush tool because you see a circle for the cursor. And so you can control how large your brush is and how hard it is. Now, you do not want a hard brush here because what will happen is that you'll end up with these very circular stamps that don't blend the way you want them to. Okay, you want a soft brush. And so in this instance, I'm going to try about a 30%, and I'm going to stick with this 44 pixel brush. Okay. And again, what you're thinking of is inking and stamping, inking and stamping. And you're going to want to ink a lot and stamp a lot. So from here, okay, maybe a little hard to see, I'll zoom in a little bit because of course my little circular cursor is blending in. I want to ink someplace really close to where I'm going to stamp because I want this to blend really well together. So to ink it, I have to hold, again, if you're on a PC, it's your Alt key. If you're on a Mac, it's your Option key. And you'll know it's the right key if you see your cursor change from a plain circle to this sort of target symbol, okay? So while you're holding that button, go ahead and click the wall, and you'll know you did it correct if when you move your cursor, you see how it's following me, okay? That's showing me a preview of what it's gonna look like. And so I'll just come down, making sure that my lines match up, and I'll go ahead and click to stamp, okay? And you see how the corner is already gone? All right, so it's already looking really good. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to ink and stamp close to where, or I'm going to ink close to where I'm going to stamp. So I'm going to hold my Option key because I'm on a Mac, but if you're on a PC, okay, remember you're going to hold Alt. I'll hold the key, and then I'll click with my mouse, and I'll come down, making sure that my lines line up, and I'll stamp, okay? All right, so I want to point out that I'm only working at the border, okay? I don't actually need to come into the body of that area because it's already blending, okay? I'll do the same thing again, ink, holding my Option key, and then I'll come down and stamp, all right? And there's just not a lot that I need to do there, okay? It looks great. I'll do the same thing again here over on the side, making sure that my brush doesn't overlap the line that's there. Hold my Option key, click, and I'll come over. And you're going to see this is the first problem. I don't actually want to use this piece of wall because now I've got this groove following me. And if I stamp, now I've got a groove there. Okay, that's ugly. So I'm going to undo with Command Z, and I'll find another area of wall that is within this sort of dark area, but without as much of the line. So I'll try this option, select, I'll come over. Okay, not too bad, but I still have a little bit of a line there. So I'm gonna ink it again, trying to, and actually here's the point where I should go ahead and reduce the size of my brush because no matter where I am, I'm basically picking up a groove on either side. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this to maybe a 36. Okay, much better. I can avoid the grooves that way. I'm going again to ink it by holding Option and clicking, and now I'll come over and stamp. Okay, again, I'm just going to do that again and again. All right. And then you can do the same thing here in the center. So see how this darker wall is following me? This is too dark for this area. So I will Option, pick up some wall, and blend that together. Okay. And again, that's the kind of work you're going to do this section of wall, and then you'll do it for the jacket as well. Now, I want to preface that right now this looks really good, okay? And it looks good because I've stamped very little, okay? I've only stamped where I needed to. When you begin to do this, you will likely stamp more than you need to, and you'll start to see areas that look a little fuzzy. So my best description here is see how this all looks really nice up at the top. And then this area here maybe looks a little fuzzy. Okay, I've overstamped a little bit. I probably should have used a different brush. It's a learning curve. Your selection, your image will not look perfect, okay, unless you're coming to me with a lot of experience. It's typical for students to turn this in where they get the wall covered, but that it looks kind of obvious that they've used a tool to do it. And that's okay. This is, again, a tool that I want to make sure you know how to use, and through practice, you will get better and better at it. It's much like painting, okay? It's a lot of blending and understanding color, understanding how textures are going to interact with each other. Bottom line, I just want you to work through this exercise and turn in whatever it looks like, okay?